Son sewed a shirt for his dad. The smile on the kid's face when it pans back to him, face holding back tears, his face when he asks if he can wear it to dinner. That's the OG move right there. Would do wonders for his confidence seeing his dad wearing it out with confidence. Such an amazing dad for an amazing son. He's so proud of himself and he's so happy his dad is happy with his presentee and that he celebrated his talent and hard work. This is genuinely such a sweet interaction. What an adorable relationship. This is like the third sweet supportive dad clip I've seen the last few days on Reddit, and I'm loving this trend. When he said the pattern goes well with jeans because he knows that's what his dad usually wears, I got a little face holding back tears. That's a pretty smart observation on the kid's part. And he's right, it does go well with jeans. That's what did it for me too. That satisfied smile of pure accomplishment. Knowing he actually got it done. Made his pop proud, made himself proud too. That look is what makes parenthood all worth it. Cherish that. Okay, this is awesome. That shirt is rad, the kid is so proud, and way to go dad for being so supportive. 100% the shirt you wear to every gathering from now on. People who have never made clothing from scratch might underestimate how hard it is to do something as well as this kid did. I nearly cried learning to see a pillowcase. This kid is awesome. Vivamus Octo O for sure. I sew, it's not easy, and his detail in the back pleat so it drapes and fits well is fantastic. Love to see men supporting each other, to see the father being emotionally open and positive to his son, to see the boy be so passionate about something that was, and sadly sometimes still is, put down as women's work. And as an amateur seamstress myself, the shirt looks really well made. R.id Juster EU Ultrices. My dad got nothing but disapproving looks from my grandfather for doing nothing except playing around with junk, when he was tinkering around with radios in the basement in the 60s. He's built a career as an electrical engineer in a specialized field in nuclear power, working at plants all over North America. I got ignored by him because he was too busy with projects he was involved in while I was playing around with computers in the 80s and 90s. Now I'm a hired gun for tricky IT projects and paid very well for it. I'm paying attention to my son. I can't wait to see his passions grow, and I'll be right there every step of the way. Hey man, you're breaking the cycle. That's awesome, I'm sure you'll raise a great man. Yes. I made a point to break the cycle of mental physical abuse financial ignorance with my own kids. They have grown up to be considerate, kind, loving adults. Still working on the financial, I considered it my primary responsibility as a father to break those cycles. I hope our society keeps going that direction. Every generation gets better at normalizing fathers allowing to show emotion with their children. It's insane to me and makes me sad that it wasn't always that way. Not so fun fact, the world wars and subsequent conflicts were basically steroids for toxic masculinity. Hundreds of thousands of American men returned from World War II, and Korea and Vietnam and the two Gulf Wars, with PTSD and lived with it untreated for the rest of their lives, because, of course, Dad doesn't talk about the war. We celebrated their stoic silence as they suffered. We interpreted 3 martini lunches, scotch-soaked poker games, Saturdays alone in the garage, demanding their injured sons, walk it off, intimidating tempers, and corporal punishment as inherent masculine traits rather than as inadequate coping mechanisms. We saw them as ideal men, rather than ill men. From them, how we celebrated them, we drew one fundamental lesson about how men should be. Men should feel no pain, and when they do they are forbidden from sharing it with anyone else. Excerpted from The Man They Wanted Me to Be by Jared Yates Sexton. We saw them as ideal men, rather than ill men. Poignant. It's worth pointing out that the people who didn't serve in these conflicts had their own, different, traumas. So you up people dealing with other people and no one pausing to say, wait, we're not okay, maybe we should hit pause on this, get married, have kids, buy houses and Kara agenda the government is pushing until we've had a chance to work our collective out. Yeah, my grandfather was in WW2, came home, lost his wife and turned to alcohol to deal with it. My father, who was 9 at the time of his mother's death, was told not to cry at her funeral, that he needed to be a strong boy for his dad. Then was sent back to school right after it was over. My father has a very hard time showing his emotions today, and I have to remind him that it's okay to cry. I have only once seen him actually cry, and that was at his father's funeral, and it was only a tear. I came here to read about a little kid getting into sewing. I was not prepared for the mind-f of generational abuse and toxic masculinity. I've had to come to terms with how my father, and his father, were from a different time, and that they did the best they could. Sure, they were a-holes and abusive by today's standards, but thank God I didn't go through what they went through. But anyway. How about that shirt? And the healthy father-son bonding that we never had? Cries into pillow. Totally makes sense. It especially hits home for me as I also have PTSD from witnessing political violence while growing up in Kenya. Even though I only witnessed the violence and thankfully was not directly impacted by it, it's still taking 15+ years along therapy to just deal with the symptoms of PTSD. I can't imagine how much more intense and debilitating it must be if you had been literally in the battlefield or received violence as civilians. How frustrating and terrifying it must have been to live with severe PTSD before PTSD was even a concept and before treatment methods were developed for it. It's so messed up that the horrific mental harm that war left behind on so many people was morphed to be praised as the signs of a strong, real man. It's fascinating and incredibly sad to see the legacies of generational trauma writ so large that we just assume this kind of stuff as normal. And these sweeping tragedies affect so many different groups in so many different and awful ways. If your grandparents survived the Holocaust, you very well may have some generational trauma. If your ancestors were slaves, you almost certainly have some generational trauma. If you and your parents don't pass as white in a historically racist culture like the US or South Africa, you probably have some generational trauma. If your parents or grandparents fled from violence, famine, or other disasters in their native country, they probably have some generational trauma. We inherit a lot from our families, and even if you and I were lucky enough to avoid that trauma or have been able to process it and move on, there are plenty of others who weren't so lucky or self-aware. And the kid reacted to it so well too. I don't know why, but I was always super embarrassed to get compliments and praise as a kid, so that's what stood out to me the most. He's not afraid that his dad is going to cut him down or make fun of him. I love that. My father taught me that trick. I wonder if dad knows how difficult goddamn buttonholes are. I'm old, grew up poor, and we had to sew our own clothes once we got big enough to operate mom's machine. I made many tunics and loose dresses, only because buttonholes and zippers weren't required. And don't get me started on bobbin tension. Weary cat, I'd wear this shirt every special event until the day I die. Then I'd be buried in it. This kid is gonna be a designer or something, and it's all because of how his dad reacted. I love this. Dad's reaction is master class. Ask questions and get him to talk about it. I've put some work into trying to get better at this with kids. They show you their drawing and part of you thinks, what the F is all that squiggling and blotches? But the thing that helped me was asking, tell me about this part, that's pretty cool. It means something to the kid, so they'll start explaining what they have in their mind that they tried to put down on paper, so you can keep asking questions. Yeah, IDK where I heard it, but someone said never guess what a child's drawing is because it will make them feel insecure if you guess wrong. It always stuck with me. Asking questions and getting them to tell you is the way. Yeah, I exclaimed that the Baby Yoda drawing my student did was so cute. But it turns out it was a green lamb. When I first saw the kid holding it, I'm like, that's an awesome shirt, but looks kind big. Then I saw the dad and I'm like, ah, he's a big guy. Yay to all of this. I'm not surprised at the reward. While I watched this, I just kept thinking that this dad was doing everything right. He wasn't pushing his kid to react in any superficial way, but was showing appreciation, and it all felt so gentle and heartfelt because the kid was definitely shy but was also so proud of what he had done. All felt so heathy. This kind of stuff gives me hope. When I was a kid, a boy would get beaten up for taking sewing classes. Now dads show off their sons' work proudly. We're getting there little by little. We had the same thing, but it didn't stick with me. Then I got a dog and she chewed stuff up, so I learned how to sew all over again, lol. That's the correct way. An example, not a shirt, but I made my mom a pencil holder out of clay when I was young. I painted it an awful color too. My mom gushed over it and kept it for 20 years until it broke when moving house. She almost cried. It was so ugly. For her birthday I bought her a beautiful pencil holder, so she was pleased with that. On the other hand, my husband's mom threw away the thing he made because it wasn't good enough. Every gift we get her isn't good enough, and we have to spend more on her than my husband's dad, otherwise she gets insanely jealous. I'm a father of 2. Sitting at a restaurant watching this and had to fight back a couple tears. I've never sewn a shirt before in my life, let alone at his age. Dude, very impressive. I like the pattern too. It does look good with jeans. Thumbs up. Light skin tone. When my grandma retired, she became a seamstress. She was good at sewing and wanted to stay active. She told me men's shirts are particularly difficult to make, so this little fella here has tons of talent. I'm really impressed. My grandma does sewing projects like this for us grandkids. I have 2 Hawaiian shirts from her, one with fabric from my college and another with fabric for my NFL team. I'm 30 and love them. All of my friends ask if she can make one for them. She even made a matching bandana for my dog. This was great. That shirt came out really nice. That kid has a future for sure. That seems like one of those kids who other kids pick on, but adults recognize that he's actually the coolest person in the room. You did so good, little man. You've got talent as a tailor, for sure. Great dad with a wonderful son. Now that's a cool kid. Well done, little man.
Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.